When I play, I try to do two things. Even though I play a tough guy, I'm really just an old-fashioned tough mama's boy. But it's love. I love the people who love me, and they love me back. You know, I give it back to them and stuff. I'm grateful. I like being around people, and I'm really proud that they still love me after all these years. Mr. T was known as Hollywood's hardest guy, but he had fierce enemies behind the scenes. One co-star on the A-Team wouldn't talk to him for 16 weeks straight. They could only talk to each other through other characters. In the press, another star said that he wasn't a real performer. But the nasty fight that shocked everyone was with someone who made him famous. On set, this person hit him in the nose and called him a slave driver. It got so bad that Mr. T stormed off set more than once. What they did to each other will shock you. The Robert Taylor homes are in one of the worst parts of Chicago. That's where Lawrence 2 Road was born on May 21, 1952. There were gangs and crime in every corner of the poor and dangerous public housing building. He was the 12th child and the youngest. All of them lived in 3 small rooms together. Lawrence's father left the family when he was 5 years old. After that, only his mother was left to raise them. Her religion was very strong, and she only got $87 a month in welfare. Not nearly enough. A lot of the time, they were hungry. The streets were run by gangs. Going outside wasn't safe. He began to work out because his older brothers told him he needed to be strong. By the time he was 10, he knew that black guys in America were treated badly. He never forgot how he felt. Something happened to him when he was about 8 years old that would never go away. He saw a man being stabbed in the street when he looked out the window. The ground was covered in blood. No one came to help. He felt something at that moment. He wanted to be someone who no one could hurt. It made him want to look out for people. He began learning self-defense when he was only 12 years old. Lawrence began going to Dunbar Vocational High School in 1966. The football field and the wrestling ring had no way to stop him. He won 3 city wrestling titles and went to Prairie View A&M University in Texas for free in 1970. He was good at math and wanted to play in the NFL. That dream didn't last long, though. Just 1 year later, in 1971, he was kicked out of school for getting bad grades. It broke his heart. After that, he tried a few more schools, but it kept happening. He just couldn't pay attention in class. His thoughts were too busy. He could remember everything and his mind was too busy with too many things. Failure like that made him want to join the service. In 1975, he joined the U.S. Army and became a military police officer with the 25th Infantry Division. He was told to go to Fort McCoy in Wisconsin. Out of 6,000 people who were in basic training, he was picked as the best. Because of how well he did, his bosses gave him a special letter. During training drills, he led his whole unit to perfect scores. He didn't stay in the Army for long, though. After about a year, he left the service in 1976. He may have been fired because he wouldn't cut his hair, according to some. It's not true. His hair wasn't even styled like that when he was in the Army. In the late 1970s, he didn't get it until he saw a picture of it in National Geographic. People from West Africa called Mandinka were shown in the picture. He said the haircut showed strength and respect, which was something black guys in America often didn't get. During boot camp, he heard one of the scariest stories from his time in the Army. He did something wrong. Maybe being late or breaking the rules. Because he was bad, his drill master told him to drop and do push-ups. He kept going until he reached 1,000. It's not a joke, that number. He didn't stop until his arms gave out. He passed even though it was a tough test. He became more and more tough over time. It helped him get ready for what came next. Things went badly for Lawrence after he left the Army in 1976. He didn't have a steady job. It was hard to get money. He started taking small things, mostly from stores, around 1977. It was a short but painful time for him. It was only a few months, but it was long enough to shake him. He went back to his religion, prayed again, and promised himself that he would never go back to that path. He had found a new way by 1979. He got a job as a bouncer at a club. After that, things began to change. His job was to open and close the doors at wild Chicago clubs like Dingbat's Discotheque. He never gave up, even when things went wrong. He fought more than 200 times between 1977 and 1980. Real fights, not just little scrapes. Someone once attacked him with a knife. By that time, Mr. T was wearing gold chains. Awards he got from people he kicked out of the club. That day, the knife got caught in one of those bands. It could have kept him alive. After that, he wore more chains, not just as style, but also as protection. He said later that the gold meant more than that. It made him think of the chains that slaves had to wear. He made those iron chains out of gold and wore them with pride. And said it was a sign of survival. He even thought about what his earrings meant. For the Holy Trinity, he had 3 in his right ear. On his left, there is a number 4 that stands for the 4 seasons and the 4 Gospels. It's a number 7 because Samson had 7 locks on his head and the Israelites marched around Jericho for 7 days. There was a reason for every part of his style. He changed his name, though, which was one of the bravest things he's ever done. Lawrence became Mr. on July 15, 1970, when he was only 18 years old. He was sick of hearing black guys being called boys. His demand for attention began with the very first word someone spoke. He said, "Hi, my name is Mr. T." He would never be called anything less again. Before 1980, Mr. T took part in a national TV show called Games People Play. The aim was to learn about the toughest guard in the United States. He won 2 times. He tore down doors, threw stuntmen around like rag dolls, and in less than a minute, he beat up a 280-pound opponent and cut him up. He gave the $3,000 prize to a good cause. His strength wasn't just in his muscles, it was in what he stood for. This was also the time when he worked as a private bodyguard for famous and wealthy people. He looked out for more than 200 famous people from 1978 to 1988. He even said no to a shocking $75,000 offer to kill someone. On his business card it said, "Next to God, I am the best protector." He really meant everything he said. In 1980, Lawrence Turo was just a rough Chicagoan who had worked as an escort and a bouncer. In Hollywood, no one really knew what his name was. That is, until Sylvester Stallone saw him on the show Games People Play. He was shocked by how strong and present the man was. He told them to feel bad for the person who has to box him. Everything changed in that one moment. He was called in by Stallone and given the part of Clubber Lang in Rocky III, which came out in 1982. Even though Mr. T had never been in a play before, his strong personality and raw energy made him stand out. He said the famous line, "I feel sorry for the fool," which was based on something he had said in an interview. Stallone liked it so much that he added it to the script. But things did not go as planned. During shooting, Mr. T and Stallone got into a fight over the tough training sessions that went on for up to 12 hours a day. He said they were too different for someone with his build. At 5 feet 10 inches and 220 pounds, he got his strength from being in the military and working as a protector, not from long workouts in Hollywood. Even though he was new to the business, he pushed back. Things took a shocking turn on May 15, 1981, when Stallone broke Mr. T's nose by accident during a fight scene. There was blood everywhere, so the shooting had to end. Future T was very angry and said he would quit if the safety rules weren't changed. He asked for protective gloves and better dance moves. It was no longer just about playing. It hurt a lot. Mr. T had hit stuntmen before, but this punch scared him. Even worse, some people on the set made fun of his past and laughed at him. That racism hurt a lot. Mr. T walked off the set. He didn't come back until he was told sorry. He will always have a small bend in his nose as a reminder of what happened. It also made things more tense between him and Stallone, which people still talk about today. The movie made $270 million around the world when it finally came out on May 28, 1982. It was the 4th most popular movie of the year. In terms of box office sales at the time. Overnight, Mr. T became a big star. However, despite all the attention, something strange took place. He turned down really good money to come back as Clubber Lang. Some of them were worth $2 million, but he turned them down in 1983 because he didn't want to keep playing angry fights. That made Hollywood very angry. He instead did something brave and risky. He joined the A-Team, where he made $100,000 for every show. He said he wished he had been better at negotiating now that he looks back, but at the time he just wanted a more varied job. Behind the scenes, he was changing a lot, even though everyone saw him on TV as a tough guy. He began going to schools all over the country after Rocky III. He was giving talks at more than 100 schools every year by 1983. He just told them to stay away from drugs and mean people. Something very important took place in Chicago in 1984. He ran into a dangerous gang boss who was making kids scared. Mr. T stepped in and stopped the trouble with just his presence. Not a fight, just strength. The kids looked up to him like he was a real hero. In 1985, he put out a rap record called Mr. T's Commandments, which got about 50,000 copies sold. Kids learned from it how to be honest, brave, and stay on the right road. More than 1 million students, mostly in poor areas, had heard his talks by 1990. He did a lot of this for free. Everything he said came from his life as a child growing up in a rough part of Chicago with 11 brothers. He also did something that had never been done before when he first joined Rocky III. Even though he had never acted before, he arranged a $1 million paycheck. That's a lot of money for most new artists. At first, MGM only offered $200,000, but Mr. T refused to back down. But once more, things weren't easy behind the scenes. On July 20, 1981, people on the team made fun of his Chicago accent and called him mean things, like ghetto trash. It took place more than once. He left the set for 2 days, which cost the company a lot of money. Stallone had to step in at some point. That anger and pain helped Mr. T do his show. He had been through a lot already. Being in the military. A knee injury in 1975 ended his football hopes, and for years after that, people didn't think much of him. Now he used it all to make himself famous on screen. Then, in January 1983, the A-Team showed up. Mr. T played B.A. Baracus, the mechanic who lived to help people and hated flying. There were 98 episodes of the show until December 1986. He became the show's star very quickly. Even better than George Peppard, who played Hannibal for a long time. Mr. T was making $80,000 a week by the second season. There were rumors that Peppard was angry, but Mr. T tried to avoid them. To teach strong moral lessons, he added his own thoughts to the scripts. His fame was so great that in 1983, a cartoon called Mr. T featured him voice acting as the leader of a group of young gymnasts who solved riddles. Ran for 30 shows and even crossed over into a different show. Mr. T made a name for himself in the 1970s to make a point. When he was young, he saw how people called his black father and brother, boy. He said that every man would say, Mr. first. That's how Mr. T came to be. He put out another rap record in 1984. This time as an EP called Mr. T's Commandments. It had 7 songs that told kids to stay safe, stay away from drugs, and respect their parents. On 4 of the songs, Ice-T helped guide the singing. Later, Ice-T became famous for songs like Cop Killer that were very violent. On December 15, 1984, one of the songs got as high as number 75 on the Billboard R&B list. Just under 50,000 copies were sold, and reviewers thought it was silly. Mr. T didn't care, though. In the end, he made fun of it. It made it to number 189 on the Billboard 200, even though it didn't make a lot of money. He also stayed in touch with kids through cartoons. The cartoon show Mr. T ran from September 1983 to 1986. It was ahead of its time. Mr. T said the cartoon had to talk about important issues like child abuse. A child who was being mistreated was helped to speak out in one episode. Back then, that wasn't often shown on kids' TV. He taught kids how to stay safe and be strong. The show taught people about drugs, trust, and being strong. More than 5 million people watched it every week when it was at its best. Then, in 1985, Mr. T got into wrestling. He joined what used to be called the WWF and now is called WWE. On March 31, 1985, he helped start the first WrestleMania. In the main event, he teamed up with Hulk Hogan. But a lot of fighters were mad behind the scenes. They didn't like that Mr. T was famous and made more money than them. He also went into cartoons with Mr. T. It was a Saturday morning show that ran from September 17, 1983, to 1986. He talked about himself as a coach who took teens on adventures and insisted on talking about serious problems like child abuse and drug awareness, which weren't often talked about in kids' shows at the time. At its peak, more than 5 million people watched each week, putting the show in the top 10 for its time spot. Some people said it was too violent, but for a group of young fans, it taught them how to be strong and brave. Mr. T got his first big lead part in a movie called DC Cab in 1983. He worked with Gary Busey and Irene Cara as a brave taxi driver in Washington, D.C. The movie cost $12 million to make, and Joel Schumacher directed it. But things did not go as planned. The director and Mr. T got into a big fight because Mr. T often made up his lines. He left the set on May 10, 1983, which stopped work for 2 days. Some reviewers said the movie was crazy and not very deep. People thought it was a failure, even though it made $16 million, and it showed how hard it was for Mr. T to pull a movie by himself. Then everything changed for him in 1995. He was told that he had T-cell lymphoma, a rare and severe type of cancer. Doctors told him he didn't have a good chance of living. He lost a lot of weight during treatment and went from 220 pounds to 170 pounds. His famous gold rings, which were once worth $300,000, were melted down as a sign. He hid the illness for many years, but in 2001 he told everyone. He said that the fight made his faith stronger. For 18 months, he was treated, and in 1997, he was no longer sick. He even tried stem cell therapy. It hurt him a lot that the cancer had the same name as him. It felt close to home. He had to miss work for 2 years because of his illness, and it changed his whole view on life. Mr. T was all over the place in the 1980s and 1990s. He was making $5 million a year by acting in ads. In ads for Snickers, Atari, and even World of Warcraft, he was seen. Hitachi used his picture without his permission, so he sued them in 1984 and won $100,000 on June 15, 1984. By 1990, contracts alone had brought him more than $10 million, but not all of it was easy. He shot candy bars at a fast walker in a Snickers ad that ran in the UK in 2008. The ad was taken down because some groups said it encouraged violence against gay people. Mr. T said it was just for fun. He ran an ad for Feuds iced tea in 2015 and joked that it was stronger than he was. He made $43,000 when he sold some of his gold in 2010. Mr. T did something different in 2006. He made the reality show I Pity the Fool, which was shown on TV Land. It began on October 11 and finished on November 15, just 1 month later. 10 episodes were made, but only 6 were shown because only about 500,000 people watched each one. Mr. T wouldn't add fake fights or drama because he wanted the show to be real and upbeat. It was different from other reality shows because of that choice. And managers said that was why it didn't work out. While some fans loved that it was real, it was the last time he was a big star on TV. He worked on voice acting more in the 2000s. In the 2009 animated movie Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, he did the voice of a tough cop called Earl. To sound more real, he even ate cheeseburgers while the tapes were being made. It made $243 million. At the same time, he started turning down violent roles. In 1986, he turned down a big role in Predator that would have paid him $1 million. Because of his religion and his dislike of excessive violence, he said no. By 2005, he had already turned down violent ideas worth $20 million. In 2009, he even advertised a Mr. T video game that never came out. Because of his strong views, he went from making action movies to working on family projects. In 1971, Mr. T married Phyllis Clark. At the time, he was working as a bouncer in rough parts of Chicago. They had 3 kids, a son named Lawrence Jr., 2 girls named Lisa and Erica, and a son named Lawrence. But their fame put them in danger. Around the middle of the 1980s, a crazy fan began following them around, writing them scary letters and even showing up at their Lake Forest home. He made threats of violence against Erica, who was a girl at the time. To keep his family safe, Mr. T had to pay $50,000 a year for security guards to watch over them 24 hours a day. There was no sign of the watcher. Since then, Mr. T hasn't shown pictures or talked about his family in public. The pain was very bad, and it made many people think of other terrible things that happened in real life, like what happened to Rebecca Schaefer in 1989. Fear kept them together, and they even had a short breakup in the 1990s because he worked so much, but their faith kept them together for over 50 years. Hurricane Katrina hit in August 2005 and damaged many homes. Sadly, it also destroyed Mr. T's mansion in Illinois, which is not near New Orleans. Rare floods from the storm hurt the house he paid over $1 million for in 1987. He lost valuable things, like all of his Rocky III props and gold rings, worth a total of $2.5 million. Insurance paid for the damage, but Mr. T didn't rebuild. Instead, he gave the $1.8 million he got from the insurance to help Katrina victims. He gave that money to groups like Covenant House in 2006 to help more than 500 families, mostly kids. He didn't talk about it in public again until 2010. Mr. T focused on food, shelter, and youth programs while other celebrities were in the news for organizations that didn't work. He only wanted to help in a quiet way. After his battle with cancer, his faith in God grew stronger. His spiritual life changed in 1987, a year after he turned down a $1 million beer commercial. People told him that turning down big drink money would ruin his career, especially since 20 million people watched the A-Team every week at the time. But he didn't want to help alcoholism because he had seen his father deal with it in the 1950s. His handlers were shocked by his choice. But he didn't give up. Later, he spoke to young people and used Bible verses to show them how to enjoy life without going overboard. His principles cost him a lot of money, but they made him happy. Hey. Mr. T had to deal with something even worse after beating cancer. He almost killed himself in 2001. He was depressed for a long time, and memories from his youth hurt him a lot. He was born in 1952 and is the youngest of 12 children. He grew up poor and was beaten by his drunken father until he left in 1957. In 1984, T wrote that his faith saved him, but after he got cancer, the pain from before came back. In 2002, he was hospitalized. In 2013, he wrote a book called Cancer Saved My Life, in which he talked about how faith and therapy helped him get better. At his worst, he lost 50 pounds, but he slowly gained it back by helping other people, especially kids. He kept going even after another cancer scare in 2005. He began the Mr. T Youth Foundation in Chicago in 1990. Over 20 years, it helped over 10,000 kids who were in danger by giving them sports, anti-drug programs, and adult friendship. But in 2010, one of his former students sued him for $1 million, saying that his tough love style made them feel bad. The case was thrown out in 2011 because there wasn't enough proof, but the media had a great time with it. Teenage crime in the area dropped 15% from 2000 to 2015, but Mr. T was still called a bully in the news. The ways Mr. T used them came from when he was a bouncer in the 1970s and had to kick out up to 200 troublemakers in one night. Structure, even if it wasn't always nice, was what he thought saved lives. Between 1983 and 1987, when they were both working on the A-Team, Mr. T and co-star George Peppard had a lot of problems. Pepper played Hannibal and didn't like how famous Mr. T was getting. In the press, Peppard said mean things about Mr. T and said he wasn't a real character. And things got so tense that they didn't talk for 16 weeks. They only talked to each other through their co-star, Dirk Benedict. They were read out loud by Mr. T one day right outside Peppard's trailer, and it caused a big fuss. There were times when even Hulk Hogan had to step in and make things calm down. After filming, the two guys never talked to each other again, they only pretended to be friends. During the first 2 seasons, their fight almost hurt the show. Even Mr. T and Dirk Benedict were at odds by the 4th season in 1985. Benedict didn't like how Mr. T got so much TV time and thought his style was silly. Mr. T said Benedict was taking all the attention, and they almost fought over changes to the plot. 3 times, Mr. T had won the city wrestling title, and things got rough. The crew said the fights made the set unpleasant and ruled out any future plans to work together. In the world of wrestling, Mr. T and Roddy Piper got into a real fight at WrestleMania in 1985 and 1986. Piper didn't like that an actor was getting into wrestling, and she said Mr. T hadn't done enough to deserve it. Behind the scenes, their fight got worse. Piper hit Mr. T in the backstage area and said it was all part of the show. The hate was real, though. Piper hit Mr. T hard and fought a judge at WrestleMania 2. In order to make fun of Mr. T's hairstyle, he even shaved the head of the dwarf fighter Haiti Kid. In his words, Mr. T said that other fighters were envious that his fame had brought over 93,000 people to WrestleMania. Once, security stopped his team from getting in until Hulk Hogan stepped in. When Mr. T was named to the Hall of Fame in 2014, they finally got along again. Not even Sylvester Stallone could handle Mr. T in Rocky III, 1982. It was a TV show contest in 1980 that Mr. T was found and cast as Clubber Lang. Sly broke Mr. T's nose at a rehearsal in April 1981. Mr. T stormed off the set and told they had to change the plot. Even though they were very angry at each other, Stallone learned from Mr. T's style and wrote the famous, "I pity the fool" line. They worked long, hard days, and Stallone even punched Mr. T during a scene at one point. After that, Mr. T called Stallone a slave driver, but by 1983, they were friends again and even made appearances together. It cost $17 million to make the movie, and it made $270 million around the world. In 1984, Mr. T got into another fight, this time with James Caan while they were making a TV show. Caan made fun of Mr. T's playing by saying it was bad. Mr. T replied that Caan was a snob who didn't like people from outside of Hollywood. Since they couldn't practice together, they had to make up scenes on the spot. Mr. T told in 1985 that Caan was only jealous of his $5 million wealth. Caan said he was just a show, but Mr. T stood his ground. He said he didn't need to go to acting school because he had been through a lot. They couldn't work together again because of that fight.